Good morning. Welcome to a special weekend workshopping edition of Wake Up with AI. It is November 17th, 2024, and we wanted to do a deep dive today into a little tool called Replit. How you doing, Nico?
Doing good. It's been even the weekend brings about a lot of very cool news, and yeah, I know that we touched on this a little bit last week, but definitely excited to dive into Replit a bit more, and especially to like show the combination of tool use back and forth.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing, to like more so than any other tool or process or thing I've ever seen. It's like you have to see it in action or you have to experience it yourself to to believe anything. Like and I tell you what, if I could just make a business closing people on just using AI, like to take them from negative perception to positive perception, man, I could be making a lot of money right now. So I'm like 10 for 10 on like the input is like, I don't know, it's for me. And like by the end of the 30-minute conversation, it's like, oh, okay, where do I sign up? Like, give me the
hmm
link to sign up for Claude. Uh, and it's like, yep, that's what happens. So it's literally wake up moments. So it's fun to be able to do that, and that's where anybody who advocates for helping people with AI, like that's a part of the journey for sure. So that's why we're out here every day, even on the weekend sometimes, so we can just maybe release some of the pressure on, acting like it's a job or we're supposed to do it a certain way every time. So we're just gonna, dive into this pretty awesome platform today and, share our thoughts organically as we go. And maybe we get to something cool at the end, maybe we don't. But that's part of the journey. So whenever you're ready, man, feel free to dive in.
Okay. Well, we I've already kind of started, and I played around a little bit earlier this morning. But this, what you're looking at here, is the new Replit generative builder, and it is like, Chris really didn't sugarcoat it much at all. It is really amazing to watch it in motion. So what you're looking at, if you understand coding and app development, what you're looking at is a full stack developer, essentially like an automated full stack developer, and you get a real sense for what agentic uh, agentic purposes are like, and like what agents should really be like by watching this thing in motion. Because I know that a lot of people have worked with what is being tagged as agents currently. It's really nothing like this. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of platforms that, there are even like platforms like Zapier that basically talk about having agentic function. There is stuff that is like this. There are apps that are the same as this. There are like assistant-based code apps like this, but the agent stuff that you see isn't the same as this. And I say that only because that stuff tends to work in a workflow type motion. So it's not anything goes. Whereas what you're going to see here is very much anything goes. The best way I could describe this is, if you think about working with GPT, think about like building a house. If you're working with GPT, you're working with a plumber, and then you're working with a framing guy, and then you're working with a concrete guy, right? Like one by one, you have to know when to invoke all of these guys. You have to know what they need to be doing. You have to give them the description of what you need done. If you're working with what's being dubbed current agentic stuff, essentially what you're doing is you're giving a list to a builder, right? And you're kind of just giving this list of like, here's the house that I'd like to have to this builder. And the builder is going through and building the house, but you have to pick the proper agent for that house still. Or you have to give it to a builder that understands those types of builds, right? It could be one that's like built out insanely huge, but that's going to take time. We're not here yet. This is much more like hiring a builder and telling them that you want a house, and they just start getting to work, and they hire everybody that they need to just start getting to work building it. And then they just kind of come back every once in a while and ask you, like, hey, did you want tile in this room? Yes. Okay, we'll go lay all the tile in that room. Like, hey, did you want your roof to be this certain way? Yeah. Okay, we'll make the roof a certain way. It's it's a lot different. You'll see. So I've given it an instruction that I actually created in GPT to create just a lightweight drag and drop web application. And so it's taken that in, it kind of understands what it is we're going to try to build. And then it just says, do you want us to start building the initial prototype, or do you want me to do that and add some features to it? Because I just want to get something cranked out, we're just going to go with the initial prototype, and then we can always make changes later. So go ahead and start and approve the plan.
And just to kind of double click, maybe triple click, 1,000 times click on what you described there reminds me of what I'm starting to learn is trying to catch when it's almost like you can tell when our human best practices, like it's trying to apply that when it could be doing stuff a lot faster or more streamlined or more efficient if it just relied on what I've learned as a new phrase that it's given me, AI native, functionality.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were talking through that, I would imagine that's how we handle the agent stuff. Like on the top level too, it's like, okay, I'm still the master orchestrator. So now I got to tell you when we're going to invoke these agents. And that's like still, it's a human like version versus like you say, hey, I want this thing. Like get after it.
Right.
And that's what I'm excited to see here. Because I'm sure there's lots, I mean, we know inherently there's lots of weaknesses related to being able to communicate, being able to coordinate, like when and where and how, and getting help from that and just saying to something that's smarter than us, like, yeah, just get it done. And then know that they're going to come back at the right times with questions when choice is represented, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
another part of the difference I think you highlighted. Like instead of just going to do the thing and making choices without referencing, us when there are choices to be made is a huge part of like this next level that we really have yet to experience, but we're starting to experience, with tools like this.
Yeah. And it's like, it is that next step. It is that next evolution. And we're supposed to be able to see this next year. I think that OpenAI is going to be presenting us with something like this. So this is just the initial build out, right? And it's just, we're building out this customer journey map, or I don't know that I even asked it to create templates, but we have a load template aspect of it. We have an exporter, can export as PDF or PNG. Don't know if that actually works yet, but right now I'm just testing functionality. If you wanted to see whether or not there were any errors that were running, then you could run the dev tools. So it's asking, can you verify that the drag and drop journey stages are on the canvas, and if the template selector and export options are working properly. So the journey stages, I do not see them. I'm using my mouse wheel to try to zoom in and out here, but I'm
So
not
not
seeing
only
anything.
should it ask when there's optionality, it's also stopping to say, hey, double check this work.
Options, template, library. We're also going to ask, can you also create some type of grid on the background so we can tell when we're zooming in and out? We're just going to make it a statement. No.
So can we walk through the interface a little bit here?
Sure.
Left sidebar, it's creating all this stuff.
Yeah, so the left sidebar is all the files that are getting created by Replit in order to run this. Okay, so it's creating all of these JavaScript files. It's creating all the TS files, writing all the JSON, setting up the server for us, and it's also installing all of the package files that we need in order to run it. So if there's any like additional libraries that we need to use or invoke, it's also installing that for us.
Does that say
And so you
Git
can,
at the top on the left?
yeah, so that's actually for a GitHub folder. So like if you were loading content per se from a GitHub account and having this build off of that, which you can even have, um, you can even use this initial Replit build, or you could sort of use this almost as a base agent by chaining this with other Replit builds that you have. You can do what's called forking. And so you can sort of use one app within another app, which starts to make it much more, much more powerful. Um, okay, so we can see that we have a grid. The background isn't movable yet, but we can touch it. We do have a template in here. Oh, looks like it crashed when we tried to invoke the template. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so one, yes, it's visible. No template was loaded. No drag and drop. So as you can see, I mean, like this is almost like a lesson in iteration, right? So it's definitely not something that, I mean, you could one and done. I actually did do a one and done application that was a like real simple tic-tac-toe game. Um, Nothing like too complicated, but once you're getting into something that is a little bit more complex, yeah, it's going to take you a little bit more time. I will admit that if you get into this now, it's going to be more beneficial for you, especially if you're a developer or you've ever thought about getting into development. Now's the time to try this out because the feature is, I wouldn't say it's free. You do have to sign up for it for the monthly, which is $30 a month. But the credits and like the tokens for using this currently is essentially free. So you're not having to pay any extra in order to use this feature right now. They're actually kind of just measuring to see how much people are using it, how much token use there is. So they're trying to work out the cost for it. So it's sort of like in between now and then, you can just kind of go wild with it. So what you're seeing in the middle is essentially the edits that are being made, right? So there's essentially like 8 lines that are going to be removed and then 17 lines that are going to be added based on what it is that we're doing. And then you can kind of see where things are going to be removed and where things are going to be added.
Let's can we look at some of the previous steps? Like there was after the initial prompt, there's like 17 steps or something.
Yeah. So you could see like created the SQL database, then wrote the JSON for the theme, wrote the schema, the routes, the library with the library types, wrote the main TSX, wrote hooks for the user journey, wrote app script for the pages. Then it started writing components to be used, installed any dependencies that were necessary, executed the SQL database, installed a React component, configured the start application, took a screenshot of it just to like check its own work, and then presented the results to me.
Yeah, that's like agentic
Yep.
activity.
Okay, so still missing that initial journey, buddy. App template. The template loads.
There we go. So I think he wanted you to test that the template loads and can be applied.
Link customer sentiment. Oh, it's got even changing emojis. So I'll give it a title.
And again, like so much of AI enablement, empowerment right now is for things that either don't get done or when they do get done are not very great. Like customer journey mapping is definitely one of those things where I'd say it's much heavier on the percentage of people that just don't have them, right? It's almost like the best of the best books that I've listened to about digital transformation and customer experience always have like that as a part of the initial, say 3-month project with the person that's written the book and their consulting and how they go about the work. But like if you're not engaged, which is not cheap usually, because it's hard work like to understand where all the touch points are in your customer journey. And usually, since we don't have AI, it is lots of conversations with lots of people to get it all and then put a map together. So that's why, unless you make that investment in like a professional consultant to do that, it's pretty hard to do it yourself. Um, because again, it's not something that it's like if we've got sales to close today, we're not mapping customer journey. So it always takes a back seat, and it's one of those mapping activities that's always on the list, but
Hmm.
generally never gets done. So we're not really replacing anybody. So
Right.
we're supporting something getting done that we all know needs to get done.
Yeah. I mean, my initial like I don't want to say initial idea or whatever, but my initial reaction to this whole thing was just like, to me, it's an amazing ability to potentially, I'm not saying that you can just yet. I mean, going to be working on it week to week to see what I can come up with here. But to me, the potential possibility of being able to build out your own private apps that you can connect to HubSpot, right? I'm sure that there are plenty of people who have ideas for private apps that you would love to load in to be able to handle who knows whatever problems. And now you can, right? I was, I
Yeah.
was actually thinking about something like this earlier, as opposed to a customer journey map. Was actually thinking about a just a raw like CRM sort of interface where you uh, you plug in your API key, and the interface allows you to, click a button to add a contact, or, click this in order to edit this part of your CRM type deal. Okay, so we can definitely click and move.
I was ready with a couple domains if you wanted to do something like that today.
Uh, kind of, but not really. Okay, this journey creation work.
Yeah. This is also like if you can I love thinking about how software that we're used to like gets made, like understanding why things don't happen as fast as we want them to sometimes, or why does, Canva versus Miro versus Lucid Spark, one is you got to hit Alt to drag around, another is Shift, another is Spacebar,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like those moments as they develop, right? We're seeing, I think we just saw that here where like you got to create layers.
Yeah.
And when all you have is a left click and a right click and you want to drag, you have to engage other keyboard, you know, inputs to
Mm-hmm.
be able to tell it drag this and not that, right?
Right. Yeah, that is one thing that I haven't, and I catch myself doing it often, even though I know I should be doing it, is I don't include the negative conditions often enough. So I don't tell it like, make sure you're not doing this, or like, make sure you don't do it like this.
Yeah. And when me and Anton had an episode about how to work with like developers effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And man, this would be a great curve, like to figure that out because the challenge that most people have is you don't give enough information, like,
Mm-hmm.
and developers can usually go one of two ways, and that's where they can try and assume, what you mean. But most seasoned ones do not do that, and they will just give black and white. This is what you asked for, right? It's usually not what
Mm-hmm.
we wanted because we didn't add like we missed the variable that we wanted. And it's like, oh my God, so much work. And it's like, but when they do try to assume, they build something that's really cool and costs money, and then it wasn't actually what you wanted. So then you're backtracking anyways, and everybody gets frustrated there too.
Let's see. Nothing loaded properly. Let's try that again. I wish I could actually get, probably could, maybe.
All right. So are we trying to get? I think it feels like it's expecting you to load it every time.
Well, and I've
So
tried loading. I did it last time, like loaded the template twice, but um, it's like, so it's supposed to do two things. One, it's supposed to load a template on by default, and then two,
okay.
yeah, you're supposed to be able to load this one. But even when I click on this, before it was working, where it put it in the pane, but it wasn't moving around properly. So I was like, okay, well, make sure that you can like actually appropriately drag and drop and move it around. And that's what it was just like. All right, I'll see what I can do. So it's trying to fix that aspect of it is where it's getting choked up. But what's nice is that like, okay, so even if we saw an area that where we went awry and like, oh, things were working back here, but they weren't working, after this, you can always roll back to where things were working and then take it from there. Right. So it's like, okay, well, in the beginning we had everything right. And then I kind of just want to skew from that. So, let's roll it back from the beginning or whatever.
That's a good feature for sure.
I want to see if I can actually build two at the same time. Let's see. No, I can't do that, I guess. So let's see.
Now, would this be an agent, or would this be an app that you could have just ended it at HubSpot instance and then asked it, what do I need to do?
It's possible, yeah. Actually, yeah, because it'll definitely say, hey, I'm going to need your API key if you want me to interface with it. Kind of want to see what this does.
Improve prompt. That's a cool button.
Right? Enterprise grade interface. Yeah, let's not go with that. Clean data cards, clear information, neutral corporate palette. Well, I suppose we could use. Okay, let's go with your suggestion, sir.
And a lot of that you were typing out, yes?
What's that?
Like the authentication with HubSpot credentials, API integration.
Yeah,
that
I
was
was
a part
typing it
of
out previously.
Yeah. So much of the shortcut. That's where it's like the shortcut gets a little exponential. And like once you realize when you know when to let AI just decide, right? And much more so than let AI decide the style of this image, right?
Right.
Like it's like, what is the best way to get this done actually?
So I kind of want to go back to this, and I kind of want to do the same thing here, is like redo it with its suggestion.
And I mean, this is so much of the learning curve right now, and it it definitely takes the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to if you want to enable yourself or empower yourself with AI, you must accept this part, right?
Yep.
Because the cool thing is the ability to learn and iterate like faster than ever before is a lot. Like it's not like you do like in this case, he could have developed a website and then figure out some it's like weeks like of work to be redone or like 20 back and forth conversations with the developer.
Right.
Right. And even the smallest things for a module like that I want to work, and whenever I like get it into a new portal and I think it's all set up, it's not working, and ask the developer for help. He's like, "Oh, I just need to throw some JS files in there." It's like, okay, I got it.
I didn't know about that, but sure.
Yeah.
I love how it does that.
Which part? The screenshot?
Like just taking a screenshot, take a look at my own stuff.
Yeah.
So now it needs my HubSpot API key. So I'm going to go ahead and run over and grab that.
So how did you become aware of this application?
Well, I had been using Replit actually a little while back, and was using it once Claude was able to do React like based front end stuff. I was like, okay, well, now I might as well start trying to like build my own applications. And so I was using it for like really, really, really like petty stuff at first. Like building your own, mortgage application, like mortgage calculation application and stuff like that. And so I was, once 3.5 Sonnet came out, I was wanting to use it to try to build out a interface that people could interact with on the web. So in doing that, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm going to have to go to Replit in order to build, host that framework. And then I can just build out the private app in Visual Studio and go through that whole thing and have Claude help me, walk through it. So I go to Replit, and then all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, well, now we have this visual builder. Now we have a generative builder if you want to check that out and try that out. But I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. Okay, so this is what I find very, very cool is that as soon as you paste it in, it's already like, I don't even have to worry about you seeing what my key is. It's already locked. And then I can add this secret. And after that, I can add it to my secret accounts. So Now, anytime I build another application that requires that HubSpot API key, I can just invoke that key as part of a drop down option. So I've already got my Claude key in there. I've got my GBT key in there. So I never have to worry about like where I'm storing my keys. They're already in there and they're already secured values.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing like, or even at HubSpot, and you can easily, if you're a super admin, right, you can easily go into private apps, do some stuff, go over to custom coded workflows, like do some stuff. But then it's like best practices as far as like secret. Like I don't know what secrets are. I don't know like the the best way to manage those. I know they have to be managed. I know every 6 months, HubSpot sends me an email saying, "Hey, you might want to
Yeah,
refresh,"
rotate your key.
right? And I'm like, I don't. Okay, uh,
Sure.
not having to worry about that here. Like those are the kind of like little things where, granted, this is the kind of stuff why developers had really safe jobs and made a lot of money in a lot of cases. This is where you're just shifting the mindset on like you're not maintaining this kind of stuff anymore. Like don't get paid for doing that part. So that part's going away. Like
Right.
get paid to actually ideate and make it so like Nico and I only have to use this one time versus like figure it out over 10 or 20 tries, right? Um, George and I are talking about doing a workshop about like how he gets to the combination of tools that he uses to create content really quickly. And that's where like it wasn't just he didn't just open up 5 different apps and immediately understand when to use which app and how, and like there's a huge learning curve there. But when you're willing to learn it, then sharing that, like whether it's consulting, coaching, training, like man, um, that's where real value is going to be provided, I think,
Yep.
which means that's where there's money to be made. And if you're worried about job replacement, like kind of we're already seeing with developer world, just take one step back and now all of a sudden there's a bunch of people who need you. Like,
Yep. No, it's absolutely true. And especially with this kind of stuff, that this is what I was thinking about, like even last night, is just like, hey, I could do this with Claude. I can do this with, GPT. There's no reason why I can't do this with HubSpot too, and just build out my own HubSpot tools and go that route with it, right?
yep.
So let's see what it's come up with. And mind you, like we've just asked it to create something to interact with the CRM. We haven't even like told it exactly like what it should be doing necessarily, or like what the overall purpose is. We just want to manage and visualize customer data. That's it. And realistically, that's honestly what I want, is to just have something where it's like, yeah, I can pull up, not necessarily, well, so this one is like to manage and visualize customer data. What I really should have done is, that's what I really want, actually. You go ahead and keep working, buddy. That's fine. So how odd is it to you that even with the directions that we gave it from Replit itself, it came up with nearly the exact same design as the one that GPT described, right? Like you got export and save up here. In the other one, it was like template and export, but it had the customer journey map in nearly the same place, and it had the canvas in nearly the same place. It's really, really kind of odd to me.
Well, that's where like come back to the training data and like quote unquote best practices with applications that do that stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
the button always in the same spot. Like how much we think we know about how people view the web page, like in an F style going from left to right and top to bottom behind the scenes. Like there is a lot of like training on this is how you build an app. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
Let's see, because I do want this to come out different records simultaneously. That'd be amazing. Data retrieval interface. More functionality would be awesome.
Meanwhile, I don't think we're
Oh, it's still
live.
working.
Well,
All I see
like
is recording.
says we're live on both YouTube and LinkedIn, and
Yep.
I get a black screen with no volume. Um,
Oh, that's got to be a lot of joy.
so maybe check on your side when you get a
I
chance.
think that my day has transferred over into yours now, and I'm very sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yep,
We'll,
big
we'll,
old black screen.
we'll post it uh, after this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. Nothing has gone right since I woke up this morning. Well, to be honest with you, nothing has gone right since I don't even know when. I don't know when
All
shit
good.
did actually fucking
We'll
go right, to be honest with you.
we'll post some stuff after.
I have to keep harping here. New stage button is visible. Yes, it is. You can drag and drop stages. Yes, I can. It's not in the most awesome way, but we can. We can add this touch point. Oh, mark as a pain point. Oh, wow, it's already doing some nifty stuff that we haven't even asked for ahead of time. Wow, that's hilarious. Oh man. Okay.
Hey, that's a spot where most companies need help. Like
Yeah,
error
right,
messages that
right.
suck. You just click and nothing happens.
Two, us, they do.
And there's so
Four.
many gaps to fill in terms of like the platforms like HubSpot that are really good at what they do. They have lots of, and for me, that user experience has been created because of all the guardrails they have. But then when people have it in their hands and they just want to take it into overdrive, and you just can't do things easily uh,
Mm-hmm.
when you get to customization. And it's like that's one side of the platform world, which I'm not sure if anybody else is on that side with HubSpot. But the other side is the platforms where it's just blank canvas, everything. Start from scratch. You can build whatever you want, however you want. But the chances that you have a system like that, you actually get to some sweet functionality, like with what we're building here, that's actually going to do anything because your system is a mess and you've had five different people building over the years and they all had their own languages that they used.
Yep.
Like that is why I think HubSpot is very hard to one compare to any other, like, let's say CRM or marketing automation or whatever platform category. Like, since the focus is the unified customer view, like it's just a different conversation, which makes all that guardrail lead up valuable. But then the ability to fill in gaps with apps like that, I think we're starting to get a sense of what's possible, but we probably haven't even scratched the surface yet because, it comes back to people aren't even great at using custom objects and, a lot of the built-in functionality that already exists. So filling in a lot of those gaps where it's like there's maybe less than satisfaction isn't where it could be because I just wanted to do a little bit more and it seems so hard. Now using tools
Yeah,
like this, maybe it's less hard.
right. I like where we're at already. This is nice. Wow, nice. Like there's features that you would ask a developer for like immediately. That's so amazing. Like I don't, obviously we don't know exactly what the operations are. Oh man. This is already shaping up to be like an amazing tool without really even having to do much anything. So I sincerely hope that people are watching this right now and like you understand now how like very disruptive just this one tool could be to an entire industry, right? Okay, so yes, this is amazing. Let's start out with that.
And this also like it changed my tune earlier this year in terms of saying things like, if you haven't digitally transformed yet, like good luck with AI. Like you're gonna be in rough shape. But after a couple months of understanding, it's now easier than ever to digitally transform. Like this is the kind of digital experiences that you haven't been able to provide. You've tried to work with companies. Maybe they implemented something that was worth it, but then you couldn't get your team on board, right? Removing the effort and cost related to development so that you can apply that towards training and adoption and actually making it useful and valuable for your organization is going to it's going to build a bridge over a huge adoption gap that nobody has really figured out consistently, right? Because every organization is different in terms of the humans that are in it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that always represents the issue. So the only way to solve for that is spending more time on the interpersonal stuff, on the conversations, on the alignment, right? And being able to build the stuff in a much more cost effective, usable way too, right? Like this, man, this opens up the door for like getting more collaboration from more people. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there too in terms of using AI as a non-biased, no agendas in the background. It's not marketing Chris trying to make you do something because it's what marketing Chris wants or what sales manager Nico wants. Uh,
Right.
like all these things that get in the way because we don't have RevOps and we haven't figured out that function and we don't know how to manage this stuff that just is organizational wide. You can have AI jump in and be like asking just straight questions that because it's not the human doing it, it's like, oh, this is safer. This is safer space for me to answer these questions, right? There's a different trust element involved, obviously. But there's just so much opportunity to do stuff better. So if you're not looking at this, like so many people look to like, okay, how does it help the things we're already doing? Right? It's like, no, what
Yeah.
things have you wanted to do, have tried to do and sucked at it? Or where are the gaps and just throw it in there. Like
Mm-hmm.
and start working with it. And man, you're gonna be amazed. And we talk
This
about this with
like I this
George
is awesome.
all the time, right? Like
Yeah.
so much of what's getting done right now, whether it's some of George's content or like 8-year-olds coding video games, um, like that video game probably never gets coded ever, right? Like the eight
Right.
year old grows up and they have different
They
priorities, so
forget
they
all
never
about it.
like
Yep.
you're like, oh, I gotta go through university to actually be considered for a game company. Like, so the game never gets made, right?
Yep.
The superhuman framework never comes out. Like most of this stuff never happens because it just took so long and so much effort and so much passion and consistency and all the things that make really big things happen. So it just wouldn't have gotten done ever, right? Like,
No.
and now it can. Like when we talk about reducing barriers and reducing barrier to entry, like man, it's a lot is possible right now, and it's the worst it's ever gonna be.
Right. Right. That's the
It's
thing. It's
only
like
gonna get
even what we're
better.
using right now, if you think that this is terrible and like, oh, it's not really that great and like, it's not really getting you guys that far. This is this is the first generation of Replit's builder. Do you all remember what the first iteration of GPT was like? And now you see what it's like 2 years later. So 2 years, like, and trust me, it won't take 2 years for this. It will take six to 8 months at best. And this thing will just be like cranking them out. It'll make this look like a joke. Right. Like we were talking about the fact that just to put this in scale for you, we were talking about the fact that it cost initially somewhere in the range of like 80 million, like 70, 80 million to train like first GPT-4 to get it to that state. The latest, not the latest, but there's a model out there by a company. They're like the sixth highest company. Their model, or no, something sixth highest model, third highest company in the game, and or third highest developer, and their model is as powerful as GPT-4, and it cost them 3 million. Okay, from 80 million to 3 million in 2 years. So if you're trying to estimate what the, like we've talked about this, if you guys don't believe, like I don't know what else to tell you. I really don't. I understand how difficult it is to believe this stuff. I understand how very difficult it is to believe and understand what a zero cost production environment and world looks like. You are watching it. You're just not paying attention to it. You need to wake up. I'm telling you, you need to wake up with AI, because this is what you're missing out on. If it went from 80 mil to 3 mil in 2 years, it's going to go from 3 mil in the next 2 years. It'll go from 3 mil to maybe $100, maybe $100. Mo Gadot was talking about the fact that next year he's hoping to walk around with Mini Mo in his pocket, a small version of something like, Gemini in his pocket, which you're going to have on your phones anyway, right? Apple's trying, it's failing hardcore, but I'm sure that Samsung's going to catch up eventually. I'm not looking forward to anything that Google has, but it's definitely going to get there. It's going to get there a lot sooner than most people think. I don't know, like, what. See, I want to give this a different code just in case. I don't know what most people are thinking when it comes to how far along these models are. They're extremely far along, much further than you would think. The best way I can explain that is that the person who developed Chalet, I can't remember, his Francois Chalet, came up with a test that would essentially be able to detect whether or not it was AGI. And the way in which he did this is that what the test does is you have to actually reason through what the next step is. So like the one of the models that he shows is actually, like, we have time for this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think like much of like what we've seen HubSpot ecosystem is people just kind of take a step back. It's moving too fast. No way I can keep up. So I'm just gonna work with the things that I know that, again, we come back to certainty versus uncertainty. If you're uncertain, um, in most cases, most mindsets are to not move forward and not try it. Um, and the fact that nobody's real certain when it comes to AI right now is a scary prospect for most people. But if you could allow yourself to wake up with it, I mean, you put yourself in an amazing position that you likely have never been in before. The kind of position that the billionaires of the world, when they figure stuff out and how to do it and how to bring it to market and all the things that they're better at, like that kind of ingenuity gap could be closed if you take the time to learn how to use this stuff. And the difference that I've said, I don't know if I've said it on the show, but to lots of people, it's like the difference this time is that the tool itself, AI itself, can help you learn. You just ask it what's going on. What do you need? Why did that outcome happen? What does the prompt need to look like? Mm-hmm. What are your instructions? What kind of instructions? I'm going to use this tool for this thing. What do you suggest for having to use that tool to get the output that I want? Like watching that happen and using the tools in that way, where you ask GPT or Claude for image prompts so you can go over to Midjourney or wherever and get it exactly the way. Like it takes time to understand that. But the fact is, if you just if you tell the AI which tools you want to use, it'll give you some real good instructions on the best way to go about using those tools. Right. And we've never, yep. I don't know that we've experienced that before, where, let's say back in the day, you had access to Salesforce and Marketo and HubSpot, and there was nobody that, like, anybody you might have asked, like, which one to use when, would have been super biased based on their knowledge set, which is not a lot, or how they're going to make money. Right. And now you can go to AI, and it can help remove the uncertainty or put it in perspective very quickly. And you just gotta find a way.
Here you can see part of like how the test works is that it looks at whether or not you can complete a pattern based on the first three examples. So you can see in the first example, it's taking a section from the right. In the second example, it's taking a section from the bottom. In the third example, it's taking a section from the left. So any one of us that was doing this puzzle, and mind you, with this arc test, most like the best humans get 85% on this test, like around 85%. So even like the best of us don't ace this thing at all. It's, it can get extremely difficult. You can see that it's not the easiest puzzle, like pattern solving puzzle to go through. But it started with just like very basic ones, right? And so it started to be a matter of like, okay, you need to be able to figure out what the next iteration is going to be based on the last one, right? Like, where are things going to fit into place? And needed to figure out, like, okay, based on this initial pattern, what's the next pattern going to look like? And that's something that humans can do very easily, right? Like, even not necessarily in terms of, I don't want to say pattern recognition, but in terms of being able to figure out just naturally, oh, okay, because that happened and because this happened, yeah, this next thing is definitely going to be like that, right? Like, we can take the educated guess to figure out like what it's going to potentially be like. The models can do that now, but they can do it based on, numbers. They can do it based on like hard facts. It's different when you give them visuals to solve, like visual puzzles to put together. And especially when you give them visual puzzles to put together that don't necessarily have, like, even in the first puzzle, right? It seems like it would have been simple, except for the fact that the shapes are also different. So it's not even a matter of like, oh, well, they have the same, similarities to them. No, it's also that they have different shapes, like different types applied. So it doesn't theoretically make any sense, right? Even though to us, it's like, okay, well, yeah, if you only have the two colors, right, of all of these, when you're looking at the pattern, it's blue because there's more blue. It's yellow because there's more yellow. It's red because there's more red. So this is going to be blue because there's more blue, right? And so its answer should be a blue plus, not just a blue plus, but a blue plus with the black negative around it, right? So that we know that the answer is a square, but it's also a square with the pattern. So when Chalet put this test out, which you can go check, yes, in case you did notice, I do use BB as default for search now, as opposed to Google, because I want not only what I'm looking for, but also, what the information behind it. So you can see that he launched a contest that was worth $1 million. I'm not sure whether that's officially been paid out or not yet. I know that, let's see. So I want to see if just what this answer is altogether. Not yet. That's on. Okay. Unlikely to result in it. There was something I heard more recently, so I wonder 2 days ago. Okay. Oh, interesting. Um, like I say, there's something new all the time, especially when you're looking deep into things. I also heard something about Q Star 2 model that I have to look into later. This is interesting. I'm not really sure why he would have left. Oh, stop it.
I mean, how is this not just a straight up better search experience? Like
I couldn't,
getting the
I
summary
really,
and then like getting access to the links if you want them, like if you want to dig
right.
deeper.
And it's directly to them. So it's not like I'm seeing like sponsored results and then non-sponsored results. It's like what
Right.
I want, right? Let's see, started in 2019. Yeah, that's the paper that we were just looking at. 21% success rate in 22. Okay. In 23, went from 21 to 30%. I'm telling you that it's new, like a newer test is higher. Let's see. Not really. I don't know. I'll have to look into this for Monday. I know I was watching a video that was talking about it. So I don't know. I got to look into it more. Supposedly, there's a model that was able to actually perform well against the ARC test, like near like something like 70 or like 50%, I think. So it wasn't necessarily that like, hey, it's AGI or like, hey, it beat the ARC test or something like that. But again, to go from, the, what was it initially? I forget now, but to go from, 21%, the next year's 30%, and then the following year, 50%, like you're starting to like make these leaps now, right? We were talking about that this past week, right? That like, oh, okay, we were starting with like jumps and now we're actually going to, or like steps, and now we're going to like leaps as opposed to, um, just walking our way across.
Yeah.
Like toggle the theme.
This is where I'm like, what's coming to mind is just get few people together, like inside of one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is where like you take the stakeholders that would normally be involved in building an application or building a website, and you allow them to work in here, like collaboratively with the tool.
Right.
Then you have each expert being able to call out the places where it's going to get tripped up, the places that it's going to leave a gap, and preemptively say, don't do this part, right? Like, when you have a couple people
Mm-hmm.
doing that, man, um, I have a few people in mind that I would love to just like, man, how fast can we build an application that I've been thinking about for a long time? Oh
Like this
man,
fast.
right? And that's where in that case you have to like those experts have to open their mind a little bit too, because they're usually the ones making the files that are on the left side of the screen right now, right?
Right.
Or they've done a bunch of work to create their own libraries that they know work and right. So crossing that gap, because I'm sure some of those libraries, like if you make the right ask to some developers, it's like they are push button deployment ready, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first level of this, like if you're going to try and do something that they already know how to do, this will actually take longer, for them in some cases. So that's where learning, like, how do you take what you already have learned and created, and then use that as the foundation every time you start and continue to build on it? Because, like, the documentation piece, like, which files even the best developers like have upgraded some kind of thing for a project, and then that upgrade or that documentation never made it back to the base foundational set of stuff. So now
Yeah.
next time it comes up, they're gonna have to redo it, or they go search through all their other projects to find out where it was. That happens, and that's my favorite part of any the AI tools I'm using right now. The documentation aspect of while you do the thing, while you create, is going to be very, very powerful. Yeah. And that's where, like, so much of this, if you allow yourself, right, to take a step back and just, you're trying it out, like, you're learning.
Right.
I love playing with words like this, where it's like, okay, how general can I get? How slangy
How
can I get
specific? Yeah.
to get the
Do I have to
same
use technical
result?
term?
Like, recently, so there's a template that I use for the Let's Build shows where it's like, let's do a recap. And the recap is like for a LinkedIn post or
Mm-hmm.
and like the last time. So there's a template that it knows to look at, or I tell it to look at, and then I ask. Last time it was like, yeah, I need some recap stuff. Please use like here's the transcript and use this like framework, and it didn't miss a beat. Like just using stuff. Like give me some recap stuff.
I hear you go. I mean, it did the wrong thing, but it's all right. Maybe because I wasn't being specific enough because I said the button and it thought that I meant this button. So let's try the rollback feature.
I mean, even here I'm coming back to think it was in August of last year in some kind of digital AI, 2 day summit from Mind Valley where everything was about like how to successfully use AI. And there's a lot of prompting stuff, but there was also like one of the app builders, like which is a drag and drop interface, which looked awesome. But
Mm-hmm.
it's still like you're having to tell it where you want the button. You're dragging and dropping. It can create the button maybe, but it's not gonna like create the page with where it thinks the button should be, and a lot of what we're seeing here. Um, because now like where my mind goes, the last time I talked to Anton, he kind of blew my mind with, why don't websites optimized for mobile have their menu on the bottom of the page. And he talked about it being a lot of work to develop that. And with something like this, even if let's say you've been using this and you see and you haven't understood that yet, like because it's pretty common sense when you think about it because every phone like OS has the menu on the bottom, right? So like why wouldn't you want your website menu to be on the bottom instead of on the top? So let's say you're using this to support your web development and then you see that show with me and Anton where he says that. Now you come in here and you're just like, oh, let's try it on the bottom. Like the ability to iterate in that way, because that's a significant change, I understand. Where you can't just like flip a button on in the code to put it on the bottom of the screen. Like it's much more complex than that, where you would have had to build it into the language or something like that. Obviously, I'm not a developer, but they have that ability to iterate with like, oh, I like that way. Maybe we can apply that. And then you just give it that instruction and it can go back and just do all the necessary changes or get you halfway there. The fact that you're not starting from scratch and the iterative possibilities are just, it's hard to describe, which is why we want you just to get in here and try it.
Mm-hmm.
But that there's so many things that don't get done because of the last time that it took so long to do it.
Right.
Like at almost any level or department in the business has something like that. It's like, oh, we know that it would be valuable if we did messaging for this audience now, but it took us 6 months to get to the messaging for our primary audience. So do we want to do that again, even though it would be super valuable if we did it? It's like, no, we're going to find a way not to do it. Now you can just give it a few prompts and you're like 80% of the way there.
There's nothing I love more. Oh, there we go. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so we got that backed up.
So
This
it's
got so
doing
far
two
along that,
projects.
like, yeah, no, I'm running one project for the journey. So, like, so if you've seen me like doing stuff with AI, like, I can't really do anything slow anymore, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
Um, like, to be honest with you, I would open these up in half on each side if it weren't for the fact that they'd be like a little bit tiny on each screen. But yeah, I open multiple GPTs all the time. You can just duplicate the window and just go to your other GPT. It doesn't matter. Like it's not like it'll do anything. Yeah, you'll probably, if you're on free, you'll definitely run out of prompts in like 10 minutes or something, like going crazy with it. Uh, so get a paid account. Um, but yeah, I do the same thing with GPT. Like what I do more often than not is have a GPT window open next to Claude, but now I have Claude on desktop, so I don't really have to do that anymore. It's actually a lot faster just be able to tab back and forth between the two now.
Yep. Yeah. And those are the kinds of things that you can catch. You have to like pull AI out of the human boundaries because so much of this would be like, oh, we can't work on this project until this project is done. So
Right.
when you ask it for a plan, you give it like a few initiatives that you'll work on. It'll be like, all right, here's the implementation. 1 to 3 months is this project, and then 4 to 6 months is this project. It's like, no, like we don't have to. We can do things better. We have the technology.
We can
And
build
that's
it.
like when you let your mind go there, like you're a super valuable person who has all the knowledge in the world on how to develop stuff. Like you can either cut them out because somebody can figure out how to do the one thing at a time with their 30 minutes a day that you're going to make space for them, or that person could do 10 projects in the space that they did one. And with everybody struggling with how to grow and scalability, that's it. Like you figure out how to do
Right.
that, that stuff is no longer a problem.
Right. Like imagine now, okay, like you know how to do bulk stuff with okay, importing, exporting. But we all know how amazingly limited it is, right? I don't know why it keeps asking for a new key, so I'm just going to create a new one altogether, to be honest. So what would be amazing is if you had an application that leveraged the API where you could just ask for whatever you needed in terms of upload, download, or editing, and be able to use every single API endpoint, right? And so, yeah, that's the first part of what we're building here. The other aspect of it, which HubSpot, I got to say, look, props for handling the API authorizations in a much better way, where I don't have to click every single scope. I can click each like scope, group. I don't know why I still have to click every single one though. Like, I don't, where did you think that you would put some kind of feature in there and not have a select all? Why? Like, why am I still having to click through every single option? It's like, I'm sorry, it's my biggest gripe about making private apps. Like, the longest part about making a private app is having to click through every single option in the thing instead of just give me them all. Anyway,
Some of those
okay,
guardrails that we talked about, uh,
a few,
I
just a
guarantee that
few.
gets in the way of some people who have no idea what the hell they're doing. Like, saves them from possibly risking their whole data set. Like, when if they actually take the time to go through it, it's like, yeah, maybe we don't add invoices to this scope when there's no absolute reason from a marketing perspective to include it.
Right.
So, but that's where like, and that's the part they are moving towards as far as like user permissioning, getting much more complex with that. But it hasn't reached everything, obviously. So, in theory, you'd want whoever has permissions to manage private apps for there to be an admin level and a user level, and the admin level has access to that button that says just check it all, or
Right.
even like default. If this person is using this, they're gonna want the whole scope. So uncheck boxes if you don't want them all. I think there's a ton of opportunity for that, which
Yeah.
probably only comes with the complex user permissioning that we talked about.
I mean, I guess, but it's like it's a default thing on permissions, right? It's like you can select all and deselect all, right? You can do the same thing on activities, select all, deselect all. It just makes perfect sense wherever you have checkbox selection to have the select all and deselect all. I get it. I really do. I understand. I guess.
Getting there.
Okay, let's see what's going on with our Journey app. Let's see. So, verify the following features. Can you create curved connectors between stages? Ooh. I mean, I can't create them necessarily. Oh, that sucks. Next, the second, can you resize stages using the blue handles? Oh, well, what do you know? Oh, sticky. Let's
And
see.
in real life, this is
Graphic.
probably real life.
Yeah,
Yeah, by the way, this is real life with AI, but traditionally, this is like a 30-minute call on the schedule. Hey, I've made this much progress. I want to go move through it with you, get some user experience feedback. Can we have a session? Okay, when are you available? When am I available? There's so much of that just goes away. And all of that is why this stuff usually takes so long, months. And that's the kind of stuff that when you don't have to worry about scheduling and availability and how I feel that day, like because of other stuff going on in my life, and maybe I'm going to give you really shitty feedback that day, just all those variables go away. And that's why, ultimately, that's why this stuff can go faster. Not even related to the functionality. You're just removing, for lack of a better way to say it, like human weakness from the process. You're just
right.
removing it, right? Which like
Uh,
can we just embrace that all day long and then focus on human strengths? Like, I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that?
oh my gosh, man. We have given you the token many, many times now. I will say, if it's trying to do it, yep, it is. It's trying to do it in Python. I don't know why that, like, even though Python works and look, again, you're somebody who doesn't know anything about coding is talking about this right now, so I apologize in advance. Wow, that's amazing. Just by default, man. Just by default. Custom theme. What's that all about? Use this website. That's so amazing. Okay. Not configured. Yeah. Displaying contacts. No. Says invalid token. Try coding. This is gonna suck, but using the access.
Oh man, this brings up a whole new level. Like, we're talking about developer baggage. Like, oh, I only know these languages, so I can only help you with that. You're gonna have to find a
Right.
different developer who's good at Ruby on Rails, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Sorry you paid all that money and went down the street in order to do it this way or whatever. Oh, I guess we have to. I don't think it liked that feedback. Oh my gosh. That's so great.
I've
Yeah,
completed the
let's try
plan
it.
successfully.
Really? Okay, let's try running this again in Node.
Oh, so
Say.
man, if you're managing developers or you are a developer, I think that's an easy idea where you might be amazing in X number of languages because you know how to just develop stuff and follow best practices. Can you just learn all the languages now? Learn it, not necessarily maybe learn, obviously not learn them in a traditional way, but be able to create outputs based on whatever the language might be, right? And I'm sure it could be an easy lift to say, here's how I would build this in Python. I know that React or whatever can do some other things. So can you just turn this into React or turn this into whatever? Like, and then
Yeah.
you start working with the clay that it gives you. And I'm sure, like, since it's showing a lot of the work here, like, what better way to learn this stuff?
Feedback. Yeah, spokes. Just need you to fix those two things, so you're good elsewise. All right. Yeah, just build out the initial prototype because we don't want to get too crazy. It kind of, it's a little bit of a disappointment only because of the fact that so what I want to do is what I mean. I really don't care if it's like, man, you're gonna break the system and like that's complete overload. I don't care. You built it, right? So I'm gonna roll this one back to what we had before because this initial design was amazing. Meanwhile, this one's gonna build out the new one. This guy's gonna keep working with the super journey mapper. So if you want to talk about like hiring multiple agents, that's what this looks like. Building out like 3 potentially different applications at the same time, right?
Yeah. And I'm sure, like, just like if you want to do integrations with HubSpot and you go out there and find like ready-made, like plug and play integrations, and then you buy it, and then you realize it's not going to work for you for whatever reason, or it's giving you 5 data points when you need 10, and there's no way to get the extra 5 without just rebuilding the whole integration, right? And then you're just building a custom app anyways. I imagine agents will be very similar. Like if we see agent marketplaces, it's gonna be like, this agent will do this for you. And then you buy it, and then you see, it's like, oh, I actually needed to do this like this instead. And maybe you won't be able to do that. So you'll have to do the custom work anyways.
These are really, the handles are not the greatest. Box is still disappearing. That sucks. So it's like every time you click on it, every time I click a stage, the new one appears. What is this over here? I just noticed that. I'm like, oh, okay. Wow. That's interesting. Not really sure why we're hiding those options underneath there. We're getting ready.
And it's probably like, well, you're the one that zoomed in right away. Just didn't even see it. Did it exactly how you wanted
it. I'm building it how you said. You wanted to zoom. Now look what you did. Somebody show me an interface soon. One of you two. Oh my God, man. How come you keep doing that? See, this is where it's like, oh, well, if I was a developer, I would know exactly what's going on here.
Is it possible that it, like, wherever it said it was going to store it doesn't actually exist? Like, it hasn't built it yet, but it's like whatever the developer would have said. Like, oh yeah, we got this place where we store all these keys. So we'll just plug it in here.
Okay. Cool. Yes. All right. We're getting there, folks. I still want to see what the JSON version is like. Or I'm sorry, what the Node version is like. Oh no. I figured that was going to happen at some point. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Is that
Where are they at?
6:30?
UTC. No way, really? For that long? 2 hours.
What
Okay.
is, yeah.
Dang.
Well, we need to run into a barrier probably, or else we'd be on here all day.
I cannot
Um,
wait. I'm sure you guys can tell this is my new baby. If you know me, you know that you're probably going to get public access to this as soon as it's actually working and viable. So, yeah, looking forward to unleashing them.
so if you haven't checked out Replit yet, dive in. Um, man,
We're not
just
sponsored, but we'd love to be.
one of the many tools. Not many. I mean, if you're seeing what it's doing here, right? It's
Yeah.
like all these drag and drop. This is what it's for all of my friends out there developing products based on AI that are very niche specific, but also even the drag and drop builders out there where you can basically build out your own set of agents and put them all together in the exact workflow that you want. Things like this. And this is like full stack developer version, right? So going to be a sales version. So going to be, whatever else in the business version, like build a freaking business version. It's just going to leapfrog like over that stuff.
Mm.
Like that's where there's, man, just paying attention to where does there absolutely need to be human involvement and where doesn't there? And if you
Right.
highlight where it doesn't, where it's not needed, and you haven't found out which AI tool to use to replace that part, like that's the part that is very powerful, and kind of unleashes some fantastic results. So definitely check out Replit and show off some stuff that you're building. Uh, we'll be sure to show off some of these outcomes with you.
Definitely.
Um, but yeah, get in there and help yourself. Help yourself wake up with AI. Have a great day, everybody.